Hi, in this video, I'm going to be going over the modifications I made to my Bonafide SS127 limited edition BK25 bomber kayak. That being said, let's go ahead and get started. What I'm going to do is give an overall view of the kayak, and then for the major sections of this project, I'll refer to specific video tutorials in the narrative section. So in the rear or stern area, I have my modified trolling motor with the pedal steering. In the center is the seat. Underneath in the storage drawer is the PWM. In front of the seat, I have my standing cast bar. And inside that pod, I have the electronics for the USB charging port. And in the front hatch, I have the battery and circuit breaker for my trolling motor. This is the trolling motor and steering setup for this kayak. It is the 12-volt, 46-pound Newport Vessels trolling motor, and I shortened the shaft to 24 inches. And then I removed the head because I'm using the PWM in this setup. And I have my 12-volt quick connect here that runs through the hole. The reason I didn't attach it to the plate like some people do is because this is a special edition kayak, and I didn't know if I'd be able to get a new plate if I had to. And then I also have my steering setup here with the center eye bolt, which gives me a greater turn radius, my steering control arm with the S carabiners that connect to the Dyneema cord used to steer this kayak, and then I have my quick connect pin set up there as well. I wanted to give you a side view and rear close-up view of this setup just so you get a better idea in case you couldn't tell. I'm using a PWM in this kayak that I built myself, which is right here, and I will put a link to the video tutorial on the build in the narrative section. So I have two connections. I have one from the PWM box that goes to the motor, and then I have another SAE connector that goes from the battery to the PWM box. Now if you notice that the battery is white and white. I put tape on that to differentiate between the motor connectors, which remain black. And as you'll see later in the video, that the battery tray that I made is white. So you should be able to remember that white means battery, just in case. And also on this PWM, I have tape that says battery, and then the other that says motor. This is all to keep you from being confused. Now, when putting this together, I use the two male SAE connectors because it's a nice, secure fit, and I have an adapter in between. Because normally when you get an SAE connector, it comes with the male plug and the female plug, which needs to have a hole drilled, and then either use screws or bolts to attach it to the hole. Now, I didn't want to use this because sometimes this can be a weak connection, and I didn't want it coming loose underneath the seat where you wouldn't be able to reach it when you're out on the water. So using those male connectors, what I did was I just ran them through a single clamshell hole here, modified this clamshell, and then ran them out here for the connection. I wanted to give a little bit better explanation as to why I hooked up the PWM to the battery and trolling motor like I did. As I said earlier, I had the two male SAE connectors put together with the adapter. And when you're working with SAE connectors, it's sometimes hard to get the right ones that will pair up with each other. If you get different brands, the positive and negative sections of the plug may not line up. And so you have to be very careful with that. So normally they come like this with the male and the female, and you drill a hole in the hull for it to accept this, and then you just bolt it or put screws in there to keep it. But I didn't want to drill two holes and have two connectors in this, and that's why I went with the one clamshell that I modified so I could run both connectors through there. And I also put it in the center of the hull section because the way I have the PWM in the boat right now is this will allow it to move to the right side or the left side, depending if I change my mind later where I want to mount it. And then I also didn't want to put any of the connectors here because when you would move the drawer forward and backward, they would bind if those connectors were sticking out. And then I also didn't want to run them straight up and out here because the loop that you're going to have to make in order for it to bend over here so you can attach it to the PWM would be very tall, and it might get hung up in the seat. What I've done is disconnected the PWM for this demonstration because this is going to show you how to get back to where you need to be in case your PWM fails. So what I have here is my connections, this one going to the motor, and this one designated with the white tape going to the battery. Now, in case your PWM fails, what this will do is allow you to get back to where you need to be, but at full speed. There is no way to control the speed, so at least you won't be stranded out on the water if you're out there too far. So, the way I have mine set up is I have the negative on top, the female, and the positive on the bottom, the male connector. And so since both of them match, you won't be able to hook them together. So what I have here is this little adapter which will change the polarity on each of those connectors so I can hook them directly together. And once I do that, the motor is going to jump right to full speed, and that will solve your problem. So now I'm going to connect them together, and if you don't hear the motor, what I'm going to do is move the camera over there so you can see it. So it's going now, and let's go ahead and take a look. So there it is at full speed, and that's how you can get back just in case the PWM fails. What I did in the center pod here was put in a 12 volt 7 amp hour battery here, which powers this double USB charging port, and that is attached using only 3M VHB tape because I didn't want to drill any holes in this either, so it gives it a nice clean look. And you can also go back and attach a fish finder to the top using this battery at a later time. I also made custom scupper hole plugs for this kayak, and again I will put a link to that project in the narrative. They just have this nice little pull cord here, and it's knotted on the other side here, and I used a 1/4 by 1 inch fender bolt in there to add a little stiffness to this when you pull it out so it doesn't flex. And then of course they were heat shrunk and formed, so they just go right back in there. And there's a view of the standing cast bar, which again I will reference in the narrative for the video tutorial. Now I'm going to show you how I have the battery set up. It's in the front hatch here, so I'm just going to lift it up. And I have my Group 27 92 amp hour 12 volt marine deep cycle battery in here, and it's laying on its side, and I made a battery tray for it, and then I also have the circuit breaker there for the trolling motor. This is the battery tray that I made for this kayak. I used a white 18 by 12 by 1/2 inch poly cutting board, and then also some aluminum channels in the outline of the battery to hold it in place, along with that strap. And the reason I use the white board is because that also matches the white tape that I put on the connectors that come out of the hole for the battery. So everything all matches up. And this is held in place using VHB tape underneath the board and on the hole. And it keeps it from moving, especially when you put that battery on there. That is not moving at all. So that's it. If you have any questions, please leave them for me in the comments. Thank you.